Meeting to order. Larry, is there anything you'd like to say before we get started? Larry and I are both co-chairs.
Uh, Not at this point. We'll just follow the agenda,
Okay.
go from there.
I just want to remind everyone that only appointed members of the working group shall be allowed to speak as recognized by the co-chairs. Attendance,
I'll call.
go ahead.
I can call Dennis for you. Cameron Chaplin,
Here,
Paul Costello, Robert Burkmos,
on his way.
on his way. Larry Valeries, co-chair here. Chris Frixel, I know he's not going to make it. Jack Hawley.
Yeah.
Stillman Jordan,
I'm here.
Dave Roach.
He won't be attending.
I didn't think so. And Dave Derone.
Dave Derone is here.
Where are you?
I'm on the, I'm live. I wasn't able to make it, so I'm on Zoom. I am watching over you guys.
Yeah.
That's a little scary.
Call me Big Brother today.
Big Brother is right. And see non-committee members that are here. Excuse Allie French, Rich Bird, Sean Cronin, Hughes rather, and Jay Moore. Anybody else I missed? Todd Birch, and
And Marissa.
Marissa. Okay, I'll let you go for it. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to minutes of the last meeting. We actually have minutes that both Sam Take and
Allie.
Ally French takes. So I will read them both, and then we will make any corrections, or additions, or deletions. In attendance on October 11th, 2022, Bob Burkmos, Jack Crowley, Cameron Champlin, Paul Costello, Chris Frixel, Stillman Jordan, Larry Valeries. Absent was Dave Derone, Dave Roach. Non-committee members in attendance were Gene Cronin, Ali French, Jen Jennings, Andy Markowski, and Jay Moore. The meeting was called to order at 1:06 p.m. The committee was reminded that only appointed members of the working group shall be allowed to speak, as recognized by one of the co-chairs. Roll was taken, attendance listed above. Review of minutes from December 14, 2021. Correction of date. Date on the minutes reads November 30th. For minutes which were confirmed to be December 14th, 2021. Acceptance of minutes from December 14th, 2021 with date correction. Motion by Paul Costello, seconded by Chris Fixel, all approved. Motion carried. Review of old business. Further discussion of proposal number 1 and number 2 as submitted at the November meeting by Merit Sharp members as to what is objected to by the union members. The unions do not feel that their proposal was appropriate. They would like to see data to determine what the need is and how many more registered apprentices graduated, registered apprentices, graduated apprentices, and the employer retention rate. Larry Valeries inquired if this information would be available via the Department of Labor. All were unsure if this could be provided. Jack Crowley emphasized that we are looking at a labor shortage in the industry. Our goal is to get people trained to fulfill this shortage. He does not feel that the information that the union members are looking for is relevant. He also made mention of the number of companies that are dropping out. Cameron Champlin wanted to see how many contractors are trying to beat the system. Chris Fitchell indicated that his members cannot find enough journeymen. It is not a matter of hiring and laying off apprentices. The bigger issue is that there is not enough manpower to meet the demand. Stillman Jordan indicated that contractors are actively chasing apprentices to complete their education so they can become journeyman workers. He inquired about what would be an acceptable source, surveying members, to obtain the data that the union members are looking for. He also shared data that CHCC requested from the Department of Labor across all trades. The following was a breakdown of apprentices: 47,500 registered to merit shop contractors and 5,800 to union. Data from 2012 to 2021. Stillman Jordan also acknowledged S&D licensed in reference to discrepancies in the data spreadsheet that Paul Costello previously provided. Larry Valerie summarized that the union members want the data on those who went through the program, graduated, and were retained by their employer. Cam Champlin discussed the history of ratio adoptions. A ratio of 1-to-1 for the first 3 apprentices was made to help small contractors at the time. Jack Corley shared that we accepted that change at the time because that was all we could get agreed upon. Cam Champlin indicated he still would not agree to the complete 1-to-1 ratio, even if there is proof in the data. Paul Costello inquired if any long-term effects have been thought about in future years with making any adjustments to the ratio. Review of proposal number 2, review of modifications to the ratio relief process and form to include removal of 30-day job posting on Connecticut hires requirement prior to applying for relief, as this only delays the process, and combined eliminated questions to simplify applications and reduce redundancy. Cam Champlin indicated that, again, without data, they feel that this is a big jump. With provided data, they can make an intelligent judgment to modify. Cam Champlin indicated that he felt there should be another non-union member on the ratio relief committee to balance out the union and non-union members. That ratio relief approval process was reviewed by discussion purposes. Committee members make a recommendation to Todd Birch that he and the commissioner make the final decision and approval. The union members suggested the Department of Labor provide all the necessary contractor information to the ratio relief committee to cut down on the application process altogether. Larry Valeries will inquire to Todd Birch if this information is available on behalf of the Department of Labor if this concept is viable. Larry Valerie has indicated that contractors are reluctant to apply because the information that is provided on the application is open to the Freedom of Information Act. New business, discussion to develop proposed standards for the ratio relief approval process. Currently, there are no guidelines for committee members. All the provided information is subject to interpretation. Larry Valerie feels that standards should be developed if the ratio relief process is to remain. Bob Gerkmos is unsure of how standards can be developed because of the subjective nature. Cam Champlin mentioned that the idea of setting criteria a contractor has to meet to be eligible for ratio relief prior to then applying. Bob Gerkmos mentioned getting the contractor information from the program manager / field representatives. Chris Frixell proposed the idea of allowing the contractor to provide additional written information regarding their situation that the committee members could use in their decision-making process. Discussion of other concerns. Bob Gerkmos is concerned about contractors who do not register their apprentices. This issue should be addressed with Todd Birch and/or the State Apprenticeship Council. He is also concerned about the nature of the construction industry and future layoffs. Larry Valeries indicated there is no control over this. The nature of the industry is dependent upon the changing demand. Safety was another area of concern. Larry Valeries mentioned that safety is one of the top priorities on both sides. All are very conscious of this. Larry Valeries shared his strong support of enforcement and recognized that violators are the biggest problem. Stillman Jordan expressed this disagreement that when a licensed individual goes through the required training to upgrade his license, example from a D to an S license, said individual is recognized as an apprentice again. Larry Valeries indicated that this should be directed to the Department of Labor. Various members agreed that the supervision aspect of this comes into question and becomes an issue as this individual is no longer fully trained in the area that he is working in. Concerned expressed that technical high school students are not following through on the program. They are enrolled in or going into a program they don't want to be in because of availability, as this has a direct impact on the workforce development. Paul Costello shared his opinion that this issue seems to be getting better. Reminder, the year-end report to the Joint Standing Committee of the General Assembly is due on December 1st, 2022. Review of the meeting schedule, October 27th at the LOB, November 20th at the LOB, both at 1 p.m. Meeting adjourned at 2:47 p.m. This was respectively submitted by Ali French. That's one set of minutes. Now I'm going to read the ones that Sam took. Excuse me. Again, attendance, Cameron Champlin, co-chair, Paul Costello, Robert Bergmos, Larry Valeries, co-chair, Chris Frixell, Jack Corley, and Stillman Jordan. Absent with Dave Roach and Dave Jerome. Non-committee members in attendance were Gene Cronin, Ali French, Jen Jennings, Andy Markowski, Jay Moore. Meeting was called to order at 1:06 p.m. Review and date correction of minutes of December 14th, 2021. Motion to accept by Paul Costello and second by Chris Frixell. All approved. Old business. Discussion regarding proposal of last year's report. Proposal 1 and Proposal 2. Both proposals were not acceptable to the union members. Union members want to see more information, research, and data on why more apprentices are needed. Cam Chanter would like to know how many contracts are trying to beat the system. Chris Frixell indicated it is not a matter of hiring, laying off apprentices. The bigger issue is that there is not enough manpower to meet the demand. Larry will draft a letter to the General Law Committee requesting the following information from DOL and DCP as requested by the union members applicable to the trades affected by the ratio. Total number of apprentices registered in each year starting in 2012 to 2021 inclusively. Total number of apprentices that left the program and for what reason in 2012 to 2021 inclusively. Total number of apprentices that completed the program and remained with their employers after obtaining their journeyperson license in 2012 to 2021 inclusively. To help simplify the ratio relief request form for the sponsor, would the Department of Labor be able to provide the historical statistical data that is requested before sending it out to the review committee? Which one? Oh, total number of, I'm sorry. Thank you, Larry. Total number of apprentices that graduated from the program in 2012 to 2021. I thought I said that one inclusively. No, I guess I read the top one and said nothing with the next one. Total numbers of journeyperson license holders, limited and unlimited, in 2012 to 2021 inclusively, and total number of contractor license holders, limited, unlimited, in 2012 to 2021 inclusively. New business discuss proposal draft version of application for apprenticeship ratio relief. Discussion was held on what the changes are between old and proposed application. Larry proposed to discuss all further concerns on the application, and Chris seconded the motion. Larry goes through the changes on the application. Paul, Larry, and Stillman discussed getting information from DOL regarding current apprenticeship applications. Larry proposes to make a recommendation to Todd and the commissioner to review and wait on a response. Stillman and Paul discuss there is a reason why an apprentice leaves the program section on the ratio relief form. It might be harder to get that information. Larry says they are supposed to keep a record of this information, but not everyone does. Stillman asks if there is a fee with the application. Discussion on 6A, proposed standards for ratio relief. Larry suggests some form of a standard be developed. Bob Berkmos is unsure of how standards can be developed because of the subjective nature. Cameron asks if there could be a criteria regarding if you want ratio relief, you cannot have any history of violations when a 5-year range prior to applying. Chris proposes to sit down and think of information that is helpful in the thinking process and publish it with the DOL on their website and help give applicants some guidance. Larry proposes to discuss all this with Todd at the DOL. Discussion on 6B. Jack asks a question on hiring unregistered apprentices. Larry says DOL has no power or say in being able to prevent this. Larry says DCP could possibly do some enforcement, but still might not be able to help due to agencies crossing one another. Stillman asks about the upgrading of licenses and should they take up apprentice spots. Larry says that question would have to go to DOL. Paul asks if those individuals would be considered journey people. Stillman makes members aware of the possible upcoming work that might need to be done in the future and not having enough apprentice journeymen being able to meet that demand of work. Paul proposes increase the number of seats on the ratio relief application. Larry reminds members this year-end report is due on December 1st. And the other meetings, which is today, October 27th at 1 and November 10th at 1. Larry will reach out to Todd on what has discussed at this meeting. Larry makes a motion to adjourn. Stillman seconds the motion. The meeting was adjourned at 2:47 p.m. That is both sets of minutes. Are there any deletions or corrections? Paul?
Thanks, Cam. On the one that you just read, on the second page under new business, line 6, where it discussed Stillman and myself discuss a reason why an apprentice leaves the program. I believe instead of it's making reference to the ratio relief form, that should be the apprenticeship termination form. It's a AT9 document. If that's correct, Stillman.
I'm not familiar with that form,
Okay.
but I'm fine with what you're generally saying.
Okay, yeah. I just don't want to confuse it too.
Okay, so we make that correction. Are there any other corrections or deletions?
Yeah, Cammy, there's we had Andy Markowski marked down as being in attendance as a non-committee member. He was not here at that point,
Oh,
that day.
how did we get his name on there?
I don't know.
All right.
Huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe he was on Zoom. Maybe he was on Zoom and we didn't know it.
he was there in spirit,
Yeah,
like the guy in the background here, wherever
Right.
he is, wherever he's working from.
right.
I would like to suggest that we accept both sets of minutes as one combined set. That's acceptable.
all right. We have a motion made and seconded to accept the minutes as read. Anyone, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. They are accepted. I do want to make one comment, and it's not a correction because Jackie, you're correct. I did say I wouldn't support a 1-to-1 ratio. But I will tell you my thought. If it's a 1-to-1 ratio, you have somebody that's a journeyman that's on vacation or he's sick. What do you do with the apprentice? That's my biggest objection to 1-to-1. But when we get all the data back, I'm not saying I won't agree to any. We want to look at the data and then we'll do what we got to do. And that's all. That's how I feel. And-
Just to that point, just quickly, we all know that we can't exceed what's allowed in the field. So
No,
if
I
you
know.
have to have a guy deliver material or work in the shop, whatever you got to do, that is obviously an enforcement issue, but we're all held to that standard.
Right, yeah. And like I said, the only thing I think about is if somebody's on vacation for 2 weeks or something like that, now you got somebody that's not being supervised in the trade for 2 weeks, but we can get into that. Let's wait till we get the data back. Then we can say, okay, let's discuss the data that we have to make an intelligent decision. Anyway, that's I'm going to shut my mouth for a while, let somebody else talk.
A lot of reading, you'll be tired.
Yeah, you should be tired by now. You mind reading that over again for us?
Yes, I do.
I missed some of it, I think. I just want to make a note that, for the record, that Bob Burkmost is now in attendance. He has arrived. So let the record show that he is here.
Yep.
And Andy Markowski is here today. He also showed up. Okay. You want me to carry on with this?
Go right ahead,
For us?
Larry.
So you can take a breather?
Thanks. I'm losing my voice all the time.
Yeah, well, been talking a lot. All right, next item on the agenda is item 5, old business. There was further discussions that we were having on proposals number 1 and 2 that were submitted at November's meeting by the merit shop members as to what is objectionable by the union members. Both A, B, and C, all 3 of those, and I'll read B. Further discussion of the proposed draft version of the ratio relief form as submitted by merit shop members. And then C, development of proposed standards for ratio relief. The end results of all that was to write a letter, as was indicated, to Todd Birch. However, after investigating some things, that letter really procedurally wise supposed to go from this committee to the general law committee chairs. So in your packet, you'll see there is a letter that was written and signed by both Cammie and myself
Bless you.
as co-chairs. That went to Mike D'Agostino and James Maroney as co-chairs of the general law. That went out on October 17th. I did have a conversation with Sam Clark, and I know that was being put on their letterhead to be sent out. So it's literally too early to expect to have a response back on any of those questions. It's only been a week or so. So hopefully we will have a response back by by our next meeting on November 10th. We can discuss that.
Yep.
Under new business, everybody set with old business for now? Okay. No questions. Yes.
Just had a quick question. Last time we were together, we discussed, I think at some length, about a simplified ratio relief process, assuming that the reviewing group had access to the information that they needed to make that decision. Did we find out, did anybody determine if they did have that, the review committee would have that information handy? I don't know if we assigned that to someone specific to.
No.
I'm not sure I'm following
Yeah, so,
information you're talking about.
So last time we had the detailed ratio relief application. We said a lot of the questions on the application should already be known by the Department of Labor or even the DCP. And in that the reviewing committee could have access to that. I just wasn't sure if that was.
Yeah, to answer your question, that question is included in the question that went to the general law committee co-chairs. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth bullet down. To help simplify the racial relief request form for the sponsor, would the Department of Labor be able to provide the historical statistical data that is requested before sending it out to the review
Gotcha. So
committee?
even that request goes to the general law committee.
Yes, yeah.
To then be passed.
Right.
Okay. I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so that has been addressed. Okay, any other questions on old business? Hearing none, go to new business. 6A, review of the letter sent to the General Law Committee requesting certain information. Again, everybody has a copy of that letter, I believe, in the packet.
Should have, yeah.
Pardon me? Yeah.
Should have, everybody should have.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about it? I have one correction, actually, 2 corrections. It's a typo error on, you typed this, Cammie, or did I type this, Cammie?
I'm going to give you all the credit, Larry, which you really did type it, but I read it and didn't see anything wrong, so go right ahead.
The last 2 bullets, okay, in the time frame, it indicated 2021 to 2021.
Yeah, I think
And it's supposed to be 2012.
2012 and 2021, yeah.
all the numbers being so close. And 2021 to 2022 should be 2012 to 2012. 2012 to 2022. So again, on 6A, we're waiting on response from general law on that letter.
All right, next.
6B is the review of the percentage of apprentices that obtain their licenses per trades. That was a discussion that was held, and the union members were looking, and we all talked about, can we get this information, who has it? And the idea was everybody was going to go home, do their homework, and see what we have, and present it today here at our meeting. So in thinking this out a little bit further, I think there are some areas that are probably pretty difficult for people to get that information, but unless they actually have a training program within their own organization. So with that being said, I'll ask Jack Hawley first, I guess, on the plumbing side. Were you able to obtain any of that information?
No, actually, I wasn't. One thing I'll just mention, which I kind of see it as more difficult to get enough people in this trade. Our organization is a lot of smaller companies, even like quite a few 1 and 2 man shops. Those are the guys a lot of times that don't want to bring an apprentice on because they don't want to get involved in the workman's comp and the payroll and all that stuff. So unfortunately, you'll have a lot of these smaller companies that there are, available, spots are available, but for whatever reason, the companies don't want to bring on the apprentices. The other problem also is a company my size, which I'm fairly small. I have 4 licensed men. My apprentices get their license and they stay with me. And it's a matter of, I'd have to grow my company to bring more people on. And it's a tough spot for somebody like me. So that's where the PHCC, at least in Connecticut, kind of is at this point. We have a few bigger companies, but in generally, most of us are smaller. And most of the guys that have apprentices, because I see them at meetings or whatever, most of the apprentices stick with the company and end up being, journeymen. So again, I don't have any hard numbers, just, kind of a little heads up of where, or at least the PHCC is.
Okay. And again, I can understand that it's something that's hasn't been established as a required tracking of any type. In all our previous discussions, there's nothing that requires anybody to do that.
Right.
Jordan Stillman?
Yeah, I'd say you kind of alluded to it, Larry. One of the big challenges is we don't have a formal training program associated with our association. We have about 130 members, and we don't centralize all the information. There's no requirement for them to do that. And so we do voluntarily ask for information, but unless someone needs assistance in filling out a ratio relief application, our association is just a resource. So, I mean, we are considering, trying to sit with each of our members to try to compile information. But, I think that due to the competitive nature of the trade, everybody is very protective of they're just, because of the shortage, everybody's afraid of exposing who their apprentices are, who their licenses are, how many they're having, because for fear of, taking from one contractor to another. So it's not readily available information. That's
Okay.
why it's a challenge to that. So I'm interested to see the results that can come by some of our requests for information. Hopefully it's public information that'll be better than we can even gather. What we have are anecdotes, stories of struggle, challenges being talked about. And I think that's one of the challenges I have with our meeting, with our conversations.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I think we can kind of understand all that. I'll go to the union side for a minute, and I'll come back and give you what I've got. Anybody from Paul? Paul, were you able to pull together anything?
I'm gathering because I have multiple locals. So I have my stats. I'm just waiting for my sister locals to put one number together as a state collectively amongst the state.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you should be able to have something next month.
Yeah.
At the next meeting, I should say.
I believe.
Yeah, well, I had requested the information. Vinny was on vacation, so he just got back yesterday. So I don't have that information, but next meeting we should have that information.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah, yes. I say by next.
Okay. I can give you information on behalf of IEC because we do track that stuff. And I have started tracking it about 8 years ago. And I can tell you what we had in each year, actually, in the total. In 2015, 94% of the graduates have been licensed. In 2016, 100%. It was a small class, it was 7, but still 100% have obtained their license. In 2017, 85% of the graduating class obtained their licenses. 2018, 100%. And that happened to be a large class. That was a large class of 20. 2019, 89% graduated and retained their licenses or obtained their licenses. In 2020, 93% of the graduates obtained their licenses. And in 2021, 85% retained their licenses. And in 2022, which there's still some that are in the process, so the number's a little bit skewed here, 75% so far have. So over the course of the 8 years, 90% actually of the graduates have obtained electrical journeyperson's licenses.
That's a good percentage.
So we started tracking this years ago for our own benefit, our own way of kind of seeing what they're doing and how well we did as a provider of apprenticeship. Yes, Bob.
Is that the graduating class? In other words, does that count all the people that entered the program? Or is it everybody that completed the program and then got their license? I know some people complete the program and they never go get their license.
No, that's the number of people that completed the program, completed their 4th year, were signed off by the Department of Labor and their sponsor for OJT,
Okay.
and then applied for their licenses and received a license.
Okay. So in other words, you might have started out with 10. Somebody may have dropped out in the 1st or 2nd year and they're not counted.
No, we're looking at graduates. We were
Just
asked
the
for
graduates, just the
those
graduates.
that graduated and obtained their licenses.
Got it.
I mean, I've got a note here on one. For example, he went into the Navy. I don't consider him completed. He completed the course, but he didn't apply for a license because he went into the Navy. Okay. So.
Yeah.
So we'll need to get those statistics to satisfy the request here, and so we can all discuss them.
I know we had some information from the UA saying that we had, Jay, you remember how many there was that we added, that were apprentices that were added to
Jay's not a
our,
member, but
no, but
What's
he had
that?
the letter.
What's that?
I don't have an objection.
If anybody has an objection, say, I know him and I discussed it, and he was the one that told me the number that he got, because he was helping me get some of this information, which we didn't get from Vinny because he was on vacation. But you remember that number that the UA said we added, or they were people that went to our apprenticeship program were added
Yeah, correct.
as journeymen.
Correct.
But I don't
So
have the number that.
our average 5-year program is about 30 people per class, and our graduation is about 30 per class per year.
Makes sense.
So we're very close to 100% graduation rate.
So we had, how many? We have like 400 and something,
368.
368. But I
360.
don't have the number that
got their
to
license.
core.
I don't have it
you do,
broken
and I
through the
will have
year.
it For next meeting.
It- Okay, yeah. you
But I
just
have a
don't know.
total number of 368 came through our program and 368 finished our program.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
368, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
What period of time was that 368?
That's 2013 to 21.
8 years. But I'll have that other information so you can actually see what the percentage is for next meeting. Vinny will have that information for me.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes a little bit,
Yeah,
it's a little bit of
to
work
do.
because you got to go back, you got to take
Yeah.
everybody's name, go into the DCP
I don't have the exact figure,
roster
but
and look them all up.
as of today, 22 approximately, and this isn't exact, but I think we just took a class in of I believe it was 45 we just took, and we just interviewed over 150. We took 45 out of them. And I don't believe this is with the number, but it's 232 apprentices in our program, in a 5-year program right now.
That's with, you have just one local, right?
Yes, sir.
You're representing it.
Correct.
Where Mr. Costello represents 4?
May I just add to that? In our 5th year, you're registered for 2 licenses. So you're getting your plumbing and heating license in correlation. So kind of, I don't know how we factor that in. It's kind of a difficult factor.
Yeah, it is. Split it in half, I don't know.
Technically, no. I
No,
mean,
because
they don't
some of
split
them
in
went
half.
one way, some went the other way, right?
I don't have that broken down.
All right, so we expect to be able to have some of that so we can discuss it our next meeting on November 10th. Okay. Anybody else got any questions or comments on that relative to the percentages of completions, graduates relative to licenses? Mr. George Stillman?
Yeah, I'm curious. So say you start to get some of these numbers back, and let's just say that you get some of these back and the completion rate becomes 50%. Now, there are lots of reasons why somebody might not complete a program. And many of those reasons are by the person deciding they don't want to do it. Yeah, how does the completion rate help us answer the question of whether or not we should have more apprentices or not? I'm just trying to connect those dots as we get ready for the number presentation here in a couple weeks. I'm trying to understand what's the thought process. What are you guys thinking?
What I was thinking was, if our completion rates are 50%,
Yeah.
then something's wrong somewhere. So we got to look and see, what are we doing wrong?
Mhm.
Because 50% of the people shouldn't be quitting the program for whatever reason. But as you said, yeah, there are some that just, maybe they don't know what they're getting into. They don't like working outside, or so there's a lot of reasons
Well,
why
and
they
it's-
might quit. But at least we could see how our programs are going to say, most of the people, hopefully, most of the people that get in, like with Larry's figures, 90%, I think that's a good percentage, 90%. Because, there's always 10% of the people don't like something, no matter what you're doing. So that was just my thought, was at least we'll get a bellwether to say, okay, this is what's going on. This is where we're at. And are we doing something wrong, or is it the apprentices themselves that are saying, oh, I don't want to do it for whatever reason? If there's only 10% of them that are going somewhere else, Stillman, I think we're doing fine. That 10%, we can't worry about somebody not liking the outdoors or whatever. That's my thought anyway.
If I may, I think that I'm going to try to answer your question, though. You asked, what does the relevance of the percentage have to do with the ratio? And I think you in essence almost answered it, Cammie, that it's all it's going to do is tell us what our programs are doing, how well the programs are doing. And if, like, as you said, Cammie, if you came back and found out that you're at 50%, you got to look at it and say, why? Okay. Or something low. Okay. I would doubt that it would be low on your part. Excuse me. I think where it might be low in information that we don't have would be from some of the other schools that provide apprenticeship training.
Yeah.
I think everybody sitting at this table, okay, has 100% dedication to providing the best training that we can offer in the state of
I
Connecticut.
agree.
Not saying that those people, those others that aren't at this table, 100% of them don't, but I think there's some issues possibly out there in that area. But I think all it does is tell us that, look, we're all sitting here, we're all good. We all have good programs. We're turning out good people, good tradespersons. And as such, that's about all it really tells us. I think the question of the true ratio aspect of it is a case of demand, and I think that's something that we have to discuss a lot deeper moving forward here. But it'll be interesting to see where everybody's percentages fall. That's
Can we add to this? Is there a way to get average age of this workforce? Is there a way to do that? Because I guess my concern is it's we looking just at the creation of apprentices. I said anecdotally, I think we can all acknowledge we have a significantly aging workforce. Maybe you don't feel that way, but that's been our observation. And so, you know, where does that factor into this equation of people exiting versus the amount of new people we have to bring in?
I can have that information for the next meeting, what the average age of local 77 is.
Mm.
I can, I know I can get that information.
I'm just is there a thing about bringing
I
information
understand
in,
what you're
right?
saying, yeah.
I know that I can say that a few weeks back, the governor and other dignitaries were at Stonington High School that implemented a trades program. Okay, and there was a comment made at that point that the average age in the trades was 61. I don't know where that data came from, but that's the number that was put out at that point. But it would be interesting, and I'll look into that myself too. And you can tell, like you say, you're local, but
I mean, I can get it from local 777, but I don't know how you get it from other places because
you can't.
the DOL, the DCP, they don't have ages on their,
How about
licenses
data,
or-
maybe year of licensure, something like that?
Yeah.
Original.
well, let's see, mine is 1970 licenses.
But
So
that
where
could be
where would
used.
that put me?
Yeah, no,
I
No,
understand what you're
think
saying, maybe.
you're not going to get age, in my opinion, very easily, because as an employer, you can't ask a person's
Right.
age
Mhm.
on an application, so you have no idea what it is.
Right.
So throw that one right out the window. You're not going to do anything with that.
Well, that's why I said
From
date of
from a
licensure.
date of license, that's a little bit closer in that you can go on and look at the licenses, and you can look at them by date, the most current ones, and then the oldest ones. But again, some of those might be going back 20 years, 30 years even. 30 years? Yeah, probably 30 years, right?
50 years.
Well, no, that's why I'd say that, anybody
Yeah.
who had their license would be, if we were just to say at a high level that over the next year, 200, 300 people were going to be retiring out of the trades in the next 2 years, I would say that as a group here, we should have at least more than that, people coming up there. And that should be part of the conversation.
Yeah, and I don't know, Stillman, I don't know if the DCP has I'm sure they have it, but I don't know if they'll give it out to us. What the initial license, when a person got his initial license.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it just shows the last license he got or if it will go back. We can find
Yeah.
out.
Go ahead, Paul. You can answer. You're
Yeah,
shaking your head like I am.
I believe it is issued on, the date of issue is on DCP's e-license
All
website
right, so we can. find
Yes, it
that
is.
out.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
for each of the
It's
categories.
like the last column all the way over on that spreadsheet that
Yeah.
you can print out.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a contractor, you don't want to ask somebody what their age is.
I think we
Age
can use that.
discrimination would be not a good thing to be into.
Correct. Ally had her hand up. You want to entertain her?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a problem.
I
I like,
was just gonna mention in with that, is, we have students in our program who are in their thirties, making career changes going
Yeah,
through.
that's a good
So
point.
now they're gonna be getting their license at, say, 35 years old. So how is that going? How are you gonna even use that information to play into an average age? I don't think that's a concept you can even consider.
No, I did.
Yeah, and I agree with Al. And, I have everything from a 17-year-old registering, wait to get onto a job site, to second career veterans coming back from active service, 20 years plus, mid 40s.
I should have asked if anybody had any objection, but Ally's here all the time, she takes the minute. I'm assuming nobody on that side had any objections, so I said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good point he brings up too, because as you say, too far, you got career change.
It's hard to
It's-
get concrete
Oh, I just,
numbers, but we can try.
I agree. I just think that, there should be a few things that help guide this decision. Not
No,
just approval rates.
and
The
just
more
like-
information, I'm sorry, Stim, I didn't mean to talk here, but the more information we have, the better it is for us to make a decision going forward.
And then do we think the overall workload is increasing over the next 10 years with all the infrastructure spending that's being planned?
Yeah.
Do we think the workload over the next 10 to 15 years is the same as the past 10 to 15? And by most things that I've seen, it seems like it's only increasing with the amount of infrastructure that's planned. So that means that whatever our workforce is today should be significantly larger in the next 10 years.
And I hope that's true, but I remember back in the 90s, the early 90s, they said, we're gonna have to have a ton of people, we're gonna, not having, that never happened. I know now with the infrastructure, we do have money that they're saying we're gonna put into the infrastructure, so let's hope it does come to fruition that we need more people.
I mean, let me just make this statement. The issue that we have and the reason why we're here is because we've got the merit shop saying we need more people. We got the union side saying, why do you need more people? Okay, we think it's adequate. So we got the two sides arguing about whether one side needs more people or not. I think, I don't know that there's a solid answer as to how you do that, other than you look at it and say, is the merit shop side not telling the truth? I don't think so. Okay, personally. So it's something we got to continue to battle out here. But I think if we really get down into that area of it, and forget about statistics and things of that nature that aren't really relative to it in some situations, we're going to make a more effective use of our time at these meetings. I truly believe that we should be able to come together as a group here and come to a compromise somewhere along the line. And that's not going to satisfy the union shop, and it's not going to satisfy the merit shop. But ultimately, there'll be some give and take, and there'll be some satisfaction. I mean, how do you prove that the merit shop is wanting more people and it needs more people? Is hindered by the ratio process? They're calling out. Are they filling out ratio relief forms? A lot of them aren't. I know it. I agree with you there. Okay. Why aren't they? Freedom of information. They're afraid of it. Okay. Why are they afraid of it? Because that's the way some people are in business. But we've got to try to work our way through all that, those little hurdles.
The one thing I will say, in 2017, we increased by 1 for the first 3, 1-to-1, and it decreased the number of ratio relief requests by about half. It went from like 5.2% to 2.6 or 2.8%. They were asking ratio relief. So what we've done up to this point has helped, but going forward, is that enough? I don't know. And I think the data that we asked for, if we can get that data, I think it'll help us to look and see where we're at and what we should be doing. And yes, I think a compromise is something that we'll come to eventually if we get all that info.
That's a Dave Derone here, and I think that's a key part of it, Cam. At least it's starting a procedure, and we might stumble upon something that we all might benefit from. So,
Good point, Dave.
I mean, by research, maybe we can find something that we were missing all along that will be helpful to all, and we might all be able to utilize something and work together for a better tomorrow.
Very good.
I agree, Dave. And good to hear from you, but you're kind of scary when you come into the room that way.
Well, my father always said a surprise attack was always better. So, but I apologize I couldn't make it, but I'm here in spirit and on the phone, and it's good to hear everybody's voice, and I know we're all going to be able to work together here and figure out a happy medium. And like Larry said, I'm sure that or Cam said it. I'm sure that not everybody's going to be 100%, but if we might stumble upon something that we might benefit for tomorrow. So
I just want to make one statement, Cammy, that you made.
Yep.
You made. You know, you said racial reliefs are down to about 2.5.
Racial, yeah, requests.
Requested down to about 2.5 as a result of the one added apprentice that was given in the ratio chart for this one additional person. Again, that's an opinion. I don't see where that's, because I'll tell you my counter to that.
Go ahead.
Okay. My counter to that is, quite frankly, about the same time as when people recognize that all the information on that form, or that information on that form, was available under the FOI. And that came out at a meeting that we had up at the Department of Labor in the commissioner's office with the deputy commissioner at that time. And that question was raised. And then the deputy commissioner, no, I just forget her name. How could I do that?
DCP?
No, DOL.
Dante.
Dante. Sorry. Did check it. Dante did check on it, and it was available through Freedom of Information. So that word got out. So
All right.
it's just
Let's-
there's a lot of subjective ideas here. But
I agree.
but-
I think if we can get the data that we've asked for, it's going to clear up a lot of gray areas that I might think, or you might think, but at least we'll have something concrete to go on if we can get that info.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right.
What
So
are we on?
let's
Anything else?
on 6B? Okay. Dave?
no, I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
I want to forget he's here.
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 7. Everybody's got a copy of it. It's a draft copy of enforcement language for apprenticeship training program violators. There was discussion held.
You got it.
You have it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. There was discussion held about what do we do with these apprentices that don't get registered, apprentices that continue to get registered, that continue to work that know better and aren't registered and what have you. And this was discussed at a DOL meeting, and Leslie O'Brien from Department of Labor, Department of Consumer
DCP,
Protection,
yeah.
drafted this language, and I know this language has been sent over for consideration in this next session. And it's added language to section 20-341, okay, under penalties for violations, and it's the highlighted B and C paragraphs, which, if you don't mind, I'll read it in the record. B is the commissioner may order an unregistered person who advertises, offers, engages in, or practices the work of an apprenticeship training program pursuant to section 31-22M at sequence of the general statutes for the purpose of providing experience for a journeyman's license issued pursuant to this chapter without having first registering with the Department of Labor to immediately cease and desist such conduct that requires registration until properly registered, and may impose fines not to exceed $5,000 per violation after hearing conducted pursuant to Chapter 54 of the General Statutes. Paragraph C, the commissioner may order a person registered with the Department of Labor, okay, pursuant to Section 31-22M of the General Statutes to provide apprenticeship training for the purpose of providing experience for a journey person's license issued pursuant to this chapter, who employs a worker as an apprentice without verifying their proper registration as apprentice pursuant to this chapter, to immediately cease and desist such conduct that requires an apprenticeship registration until properly registered. The commissioner may impose fines not exceeding $5,000 per violation after hearing conducted pursuant to Chapter 54 of the General Statute. This is also, if you go to the next page, highlighted number 4. I'll read it in part. Or 4, violates any of the provisions of this chapter, Chapter 394, 399B, or Chapter 42, or the regulations adopted pursuant thereto. Such penalty shall be in an amount not more than $1,000 for the first violations of this subsection, not more than $1,500 for the second violation of this subsection, and not more than $3,000 for each violation of this subsection occurring less than 3 years after the second or subsequent violation of this subsection. That is highlighted because that exists actually in the statute right now.
Yep.
And the reason it was highlighted is because it was discussed that this $5,000 violation will that overrule the $1,000, $1,500, $3,000 fine statute, and it does not. Okay, it's a standalone. It is standalone. So this is an attempt to try to zero in on some of those unregistered people. Got to find them. Got to catch them. I'm supportive of this attempt, to be honest with you. It's an attempt in the right direction to try to at least do something with it. I can tell you this also from experience. Excuse me. I can also tell you this from experience as chairman of the electrical board. And I'm sure Paul can verify it for you too, that many times we had people come before the board, okay, with what they called equivalent experience that were never registered, or they were what we would call sometimes a lifelong apprentice, okay? They would come before the board and ask for approval to sit for the exam. And the people would have a letter, a notarized letter from their employers who never registered them, okay, that they in fact worked for them for that period of time, that they in fact did electrical work. They weren't just a truck driver or a warehouse person, that they did do electrical work. And we quite frankly would unfortunately deny the person to be able to sit for his license, which didn't go very well. And we would refer that contractor back for investigations to the department. And then that contractor should come before the respective board. And as long as I've been involved in this trade, and as long as I've been involved in the licensing board and in apprenticeship, that is probably one of the worst and most upsetting things that can happen out there, other than somebody getting hurt, obviously. But it really bothers me when people are taking advantage of, and in some cases that has. And my feeling is, at that point, you really got to take a look at the contractor and the fact that he knows better, especially these days, because they get it through continued education. They're told it every year. We don't take it out of the program. We keep it in there every year. It's kept in the handbook that gets handed out. So I really, unfortunately, I would like to see some of those situations coming back before the board. We haven't seen those in a long time. That's another situation. It's not really part of this meeting, but I'm totally against unregistered people. There's no reason for it. There was a lot of confusion, well, perceived confusion about a probationary period, okay, because you didn't have to register them and so forth, okay? Department of Labor was kind enough to send out clarification on that to every sponsor, so there's no question about the fact that you don't hire somebody, put them out into the trades without registering them first. So, I don't know how much clearer it could have been put to everybody. So, anyway,
You know, and that upsets me, Larry, like, as you said, it upsets me that somebody that was looking for a career in a trade, that 4 years that he looked forward to as an apprentice and then have a career, he was robbed of it by that contract. And in my opinion, that contract they should take his license away or suspend it for a certain amount of time. Because that really screws up a guy's livelihood. And I'm not going to go on, but Larry, I agree with you 100%. We should be doing something. And it's not us. DCP is the one. They have to do something to stop this.
Yeah.
And they have to do something to somebody that they catch doing this and do something drastic so that other people will say, well, I better not do that because they'll put me out of business.
unfortunately, I'll just say this, unfortunately, civil penalties doesn't seem
No.
to work. It's just a cost of doing business.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll take the chance as a contractor and I'll work all these unregistered people. If I get caught,
Right.
I'll pay the penalty, but in the meantime, I got a job done and what have you.
Yeah.
So using that as just as an example, okay? That shows where there is a little bit of a need out there for apprentices to be able to become registered, and where the ratio does have a negative impact on us, because it's a little bit creating a situation for the contractor to just violate the rules. So
We need,
we need to keep that in thought as we move forward here and talk about the need for a change in ratio or what have you. So anyway,
still,
that's
you
another,
got your hand up.
that's another
Yeah, not us, but
another
it's something.
committee.
I did have a quick follow-up question. This was put forward to this group. Are we considering proposing this? I just would like a little clarity
That's
on.
No, we're not proposing this. This is being proposed
DCP.
by DCP.
And they're just
This
asking
is-
us for an opinion on it?
No, this is just, I
Information
gave you
for us.
to you for information, so you know that something's going on, because one of the things that we are concerned about here in this group is people that are not registered. That was,
So and this is something that is being proposed to be put in effect? And when are they
This-
thinking it's going to be?
this will be presented through the legislative process.
I see. So someone's going to put a bill together that wants this language changed.
Right,
DCP.
And if we have any,
Department
if we have anything that we think should be included in it, I'm sure they'll listen to us
Yeah.
to help that process.
And just as a follow-up, do we have any, would they be able to provide any stats? I'm just curious how many infractions were documented over the past year and what the total fines have been so far as we or they consider something like this?
Still,
I would say that's a good question. If you want to ask that question, it should be brought up when it's presented at the legislators.
I know, Stillman, Larry and I go back a long ways, but it wasn't too many years ago. It doesn't seem too many years ago. We had hundreds of unregistered apprentices come to DCP looking for time because, and I'm going to go back a little, in the early 2000s, the Department of Labor decided they're not going to give uncredited time, unregistered time anymore. So then for somebody to ask to sit for a license, they had to come to DCP. And I'm telling you, and Larry, I'm sure you can back me up that not just our board, the heating board, but every board had hundreds and hundreds of people come in that were never registered, that contractors just put them out there and never registered one. So it has helped since then, because at one time it was a $35 fine for having an unregistered person. And when all this went on, and I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit here, but I did say, you know what, we have to do something. That's why the fines got increased from $35 to $1,000 for the first one, $1,500 for the second one, and $3,000 for the next one. Because I did hear one company from New Hampshire, the guy was outside in the hallway in DCP's building, and I heard him say to his lawyer, well, it's just the cost of doing business. So just like we were just talking about, it's the cost of doing business. So anyway, I think that's a good question, but I just wanted to give you a little background on some of the things that have happened.
All right, so as we said, that's informational information for everybody, so they're aware of it. That same information is going to be presented to my electrical board when we meet next week, so that they're aware of it. So,
All right, so that's
okay. Moving on, and just number 8, reminder again that our year-end report is due to the Joint Standing Committee of the General Assembly December 1st, which we will put that together and
after our next meeting.
and Cami and I will jointly put that together and sign it, and
Yep.
hopefully without too many arguments.
Yeah.
Our next scheduled meeting is November 10th here at the LOB at 1 o'clock as well. Before I ask for an adjournment, is there anything else that the committee members need to bring forward at this point?
Stillman.
Just ask, I know a lot of numbers are supposed to be brought for the next meeting. If there's any opportunity to send those out in advance, just so a little time to review before this next meeting, I appreciate it. That's something that could be sent before as it's available.
Anything else?
Anything else?
No, well.
Going once, going twice.
Right.
All right. A motion to adjourn?
Second,
Second?
2:09, we adjourned.
209. What is it? 209?
2:09.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you,
Take
everyone.
care, guys.
We will see you on the 10th.